y'all, it's Ayana Sunshine, and welcome back to the Everything Grows podcast, where we talk about growing exactly from where we are. Today we have Reverend Carmen Player, who was actually my middle school history teacher, and I'm very grateful to have them on the podcast today. And hello!
Hey, Sugarfoot, as like back in the day. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so grateful, and I hold such deep gratitude that our lives continue to grow together over a decade together, close and apart. And I'm just so proud of your evolution and what you're giving to the world. You always had a great impact. Oh, wait a minute, since we're recording, if you don't believe me, that's what I have. Middle school homes. Come on. Come on, Lonnie. Yes. I carry this seriously, like through a lot of different transitions and things. Like if you don't have students and teachers who are younger than you are, that your students will be your teachers then. I don't think you're living your life right. Because I learned so much about myself and how to be a better person, a better educator from teaching you. And look at you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. And if anyone, I tweeted about you earlier actually, and I was tweeting just saying how I was so excited to have you on my podcast today because I truly, from just thinking about me until now, you were one of the first people who actually saw me. And I talked about how in 2010, being a dark skinned girl with short hair, people weren't as kind as they are today. And to have somebody to support me and also not just support me, but defend me as well was very vital to me. So before we get started, I just want to give you your flowers and say thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that. And it's definitely encouraged me to be as confident and as forthright as I am today and not have a problem about it. And that leads me into one of the first things that I want to talk about where you made a post and you were talking about the audacity for a Black woman to say no. And I wanted to start on that to hear what you have to say about that and let our viewers hear what you have to say about that.
Well, my oh my, yes, the audacity for a Black woman to say no. One, thank you for paying attention. Sometimes you put things out in the ether and it's like, I don't know if anybody's paying attention to this, but somebody needs it. I need it. So, right on, I'm glad it resonated with you. The thing about it is that a lot of the outrage with like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka was uh, they, so much of the society were offended that they decided to say no that day. If they said yes, then there would be no issue. See, part of the issue and the problem that a lot of us have. So everything, pause when I say all of this, and I don't want to seem like I'm preaching and the sort, because I believe that everything is like a window and a mirror experience. So if I see out in the world and I see something and it registers within me, that means it's a mirror. So there's something about me I need to also learn from this. So if I'm saying this so adamantly, I'm really saying it to myself, and I'm trying to hear myself as well. And so, in saying that, one of the things I would say to my young folks was, I need you to be as enthusiastic about my no as you are my yes, because they're equally sacred. The boundary of the no, when you use your no intentionally, you're saying this is the threshold of what is acceptable and what is not. So, when you hold those firm, it can be offensive to someone else because they weren't able to take advantage or be inside the space that you had held as sacred or for yourself and not someone else. And the fact that Black women in particular, and brown women and indigenous women, have had to endure people's refusal of their no historically and in every way and sense exploited. So the mere fact that these women decided to say no, how dare you not do something with your body that we expect of you? That's really what it came down to. Like, oh, it's athleticism. Like, no, perform, Black women. And these Black women said no. And I appreciate your generation, because y'all's no is a serious no. And it's like, I won't be that. I'm going to be this. I've decided. I'm defining it. Now, how do we do this in a life affirming way? But that's another story.
One of my favorite affirmations that I say is I
Mm.
can be soft in my heart and firm in my boundaries because I think a lot
Mhm.
of people feel like when they give boundaries, it gives
Mhm.
like, oh, as you said, I'm angry or
Mhm.
I'm being defensive. But no, it's me
Mhm.
saying that this is the space where I say it
Mhm.
starts and it stops. Nothing more
Mhm.
and nothing less.
Mhm.
So the next question I would like to ask you is, when did you
Mhm.
first figure out that your no had to be firm?
When I first figured out my no had to be firm, I'm just going to allow Spirit to say it. I don't want to, but I'm going to say it. Is when I had to have a really firm boundary with my mother and how she was going to speak to me.
That that's a I resonate very deeply with that. I resonate very deeply with that, especially being a fresh, well, almost 25, but ooh, sorry, Carmen.
Oh, listen, it's quite all right. Look, go ahead, tell your age again. Everybody,
Yes,
check it out.
24, 24. And that was my history teacher.
Middle
Uh-huh,
school.
uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Read it and
But
weep.
yeah.
But yes.
Yeah.
Coming home from college, I graduated during the pandemic and kind
Mm-hmm.
of got forced out of school. Not kind of, but
Mm-hmm.
did get forced out of
Mm-hmm.
school to come
Mm-hmm.
home. And I
Mm-hmm.
was home for about 6 months before I decided to move out. And that's very quick because I was
Mm-hmm.
still 21,
Mm-hmm.
unaware of what was going on. But I knew that this space, I needed to branch out of it in order to grow. In
Mm-hmm.
order to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
then in doing that, making decisions for myself,
Mm-hmm.
any
Mm-hmm.
decisions, small decisions or large decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that I didn't need my mother's approval in order
Mm-hmm.
to make those decisions. Although I could use her
Mm-hmm.
advice, I didn't need her approval to
Mm-hmm.
make those decisions, as well as just
Mm-hmm.
conversations about what I would do with my life in general. Just
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there's no
Mm-hmm.
hard feelings.
Mm-hmm.
However, a boundary has to be set.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and it also helps us to ensure that we know how we're going to navigate with each other. Because, like, again, and I feel like we're all parenting each other's, we're all like each other's guardians. I speak for little Carmen as like a proximity, by proxy as an adult. But all that to say, like, if I would say to my kids and I would say to myself, is like, you have to be careful about how much you play with somebody because someone's boundaries might be invisible. You might bump up against them and hurt them. You don't know, that could have been their day that day and they didn't name it. And so if we start to change and incorporate a practice even from childhood, and you saying no, this doesn't feel good, or this doesn't honor me, or this doesn't make me feel safe, this is what I need, this is what I want, then people will know how to navigate with us. And so there are not these invisible boundaries that and expectations that people bump up against, and on the other side is the residual effect of resentment, and then they lash it back out because you dishonored my boundaries and myself and everything else, and it's like this cycle, right? But we never talked about, we'll say what you're not going to do, right? But what do you really mean by what you're not going to do? Is this is how you can honor it in engage with me, navigate with me, you know it makes it predictable, safer.
And do you have any advice for someone who may be going into that space that is trying to set boundaries for people outside of moms, just people in general?
Yeah, I think first, before you even go into that space, like, get yourself grounded, right? Because what you're about to go into is a sensitive conversation. And especially like going, I guess, kind of going in the same vein of what we're talking about now, but this is, I think, for anywhere. When you're having a conversation with somebody, you're also kind of shifting how they see you, particularly like a parent and a child. It's like your parent has never been an adult parent with an adult they might have adult other Shawnee and Dada and whoever and Daniel and that, they don't have an adult you, right? So you're teaching each other how to be adults in this same relationship of parent and child, but I'm not your child, I'm your adult child, right? So when you're understanding that, that will kind of shift how you're going into it, I think, too. Like, you can breathe and like be grounded in yourself, is that I'm not a child. It doesn't mean like you have to flex like I'm it's just that you can be in the room as an adult. It's like, I can be calm, I can feel like activated and like take a deep breath. I don't have to just flex back. I can actually stop my reaction. I can be calm, right? When you know that what you can do before you can go in there, when you know you're going to get agitated, you know somebody's going to say something slick. That's a guarantee because they're shifting. Their paradigm is shifting. How they see you, how they think this relationship is going to go is being challenged right in front of their eyes as they listen to you. People generally aren't like, oh yeah, I respect that. Some are. I'm trying to get there. You know what I mean? Sometimes I hear stuff, I'm like, I don't like that. So I'm going to buck up against that. Imagine if an adult child is telling to their adult parent, I really don't appreciate when you call me out of my name. It hurts me. And so if we're going to continue to have conversations with each other, you cannot call me out of my name. That's when we're going to stop the conversation. We're going to have a timeout. I'm going to have to walk away. But don't have this conversation while y'all yelling and arguing. Have it when things are calm. Nobody listening to anybody when it's hot. Mm-hmm. So, in synopsis, get grounded. Understand that everybody's paradigm is shifting. And don't have this conversation when people are upset. Have them when things are calm and good so you can actually talk about and negotiate. But you also have to know what you actually want and need. Because you're like, man, you don't respect me. So, what does that sound like? What do you want? Not what they're not doing.
And that's one of my favorite things to do is to ground. And reading up on you, I saw that you also like to hike. I like to hike as well. I like to be in nature. I like to hug the trees.
Yes. I saw
Absolutely.
you doing yoga near the, well, on the river. I don't want to put your stuff out there because, word, word. Okay. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Is that what they
No,
say?
but really,
Okay,
that's
cool. Great.
you with the times. But
I
yes, that's
watched, I watched the Switch Watch on TikTok. That's it. I'm just kidding.
the
I
switch.
just kidding.
And Carmen has always been this funny. Always been this funny, always been this comical. That's why that was my favorite class. History was always my favorite class. But talking about grounding activities, I like to hike, I like to do yoga, I like to meditate, I like to journal, just giving our friends some ideas of ways that they can ground themselves. And journaling has definitely worked for me because sometimes when you write it out, it's like solving a problem. Getting your ideas out, you start to flesh them out, and then when you read them back and you can read them out loud, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, you're tripping. And other times you can read it, you're like, okay, you're right. Now let's deliver it to this person. Kind of like, a pep talk or drafting it out, making a plan before you speak. And what ways would you say that you love to ground yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the first things I know I have to do is that I have to give my feelings their space. I don't try to push them down. Like if I'm feeling hurt, if I'm feeling isolated, if I'm feeling rejected, if I'm feeling pain, I have to allow it to have its space because for me, if I try to compartmentalize that and push it down, it's like going to the pool with one of those really cheap inflatable balls you can get from like Giant that's like $1.50 or something, and you're like at the pool and you got it underneath you and you're trying to hold it down, but then it pops up higher than the original water. That's what would happen to my emotions, and then I have to try to clean it up after it's popped up. So one, I have to allow the feelings to come out, and sometimes it's laying down on the ground and crying. Sometimes it's going on a run or a walk or like drawing or creating and just kind of letting it come through my body. I give myself at least 24 hours to feel whatever visceral feelings by myself if I can, right? Especially if I'm about to go into a planned or I know I'm about to have this encounter. Let me feel my feelings. And then I also, in the same way, I kind of write it down. I was like, if I said this out loud, how is that going to be said? How's that going to be perceived? And for me in my communication, I like to use what's called like economy of language is when you try to say exactly what you want to say with the least amount of words.
I like to call it
Because
say the facts. I love to call it state the
bulleted,
facts. State the
listen,
facts.
I need a bulleted list, right? Because a lot of words, people can hide behind words. There's a lot of meaning that can be like conflated and everything else like that. So I'm going to say, when for example, when you call me out my name, I feel very disrespected and I feel small. When we talk, I need you to not call me out my name. You remember that time when you called me a blah blah blah, you better not do that. What? First of all, you're now the energy is not in a place where people can listen. Nobody's listening to that. There's no negotiation. There's no getting a yes. They're like, okay, I know how to interact with you now. Now I know you're confrontational. Now I know you can't have a conversation, right? And so like just give me bullets. Bullets. And so I write down my bullets and make sure that I'm being really clear. And I honor that I have to also ask, am I doing this because it is safe for me and it serves me, or am I doing this to try to punish somebody? Right? Sometimes it'll feel like a punishment because it's a consequence of an interaction, and you have to just be like, "Oh no." That sometimes it's just a no. The boundary's a no. It's not like when I see you, it's a no over here, right? Or am I saying I'm now not going to talk to you because I didn't like the way you told me the truth in that way? The content of the message was correct, the delivery was off, but I conflated the two, and now I'm saying I can't talk to you. So I have to also assess, I'm like, okay, my wife is my sounding board too. So like counsel is important. Watch the people that you keep and like, okay, can I share this with you? Am I tripping? Check me if I'm wrong. You know what I mean? If you have, it depends on the context and situation. Sometimes I need someone to bounce that off. Sometimes I just need to listen to my stomach and spirit and be like, no, I trust this. This is not serving. This is what I need to interact and navigate, you know? So it's not like every single case and situation when you set boundaries, is it the same? What has to be consistent is when I do set these boundaries, I'm going to honor them. And whatever consequence happens with it, I'm okay with it because I'm going to keep it there because I've said this is necessary in order for me to feel safe, to feel affirmed, to feel.
I like that. And I like what you pointed out about counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask, why is it important? Because I don't think people understand how important it is for the people around them to also be in good spirits or in just equal or better spirits. So can you talk a little bit about that, about why it's important to have good counsel and great people around you?
I, whew, you're one of my favorites. I've told you that since you were a kid, and it rings true today. It's such a good question. Here is the greatest metaphor, analogy, simile. I don't know what it is. Choose the whatever figurative speech. Energy, vibration, decisions, people are like being beside a person during a water balloon fight. Right? Good energy, negative energy is just like that. If you have somebody who's making decisions that's going to cause consequences that are negative, these are like water balloons, but you as close as you are is how wet you gonna get. Two people get wet in that situation, not just one. One gets drenched, the other one gets at least sprinkled. So whoever you're close to, and the water balloons don't care. They're just whatever you put out, it's attracting these water balloons. So if it's negative things and negative thoughts, negative decisions, not life affirming. If it's not life affirming, if it's hurting people, if it's degrading people, if it's not like truly loving and it's negative, it's going to come back. So either you can be drenched by negative consequences or you can get that overflow of an anointing from some good decisions that people have made. Because think about how many times you've been in a room because people knew you for who you were and who you hung around. Mm-hmm. How many times have I put you on because I was like, oh no, I have somebody that I need. Anna Holmes, come on, Miss Holmes, Miss Holmes, hey, you're in town, hey,
Talk to your
absolutely.
friend.
Bring a friend too. Make sure you know who you need to bring, right? Do not just bring anybody with you, and I'll make sure you're right. Because the thing about it is like the company you keep is the energy you will also reap. Come on, put it on a t-shirt. Put it on the dome. The company keep truly is the consequence that you'll reap. Right. And so like if people are doing life affirming things to uplift people, to bring forth life, to bring forth love and compassion and hope, you know how many you get one apple seed, you put it in the ground. Come on, everything grows.
Yeah,
How many apples does that tree produce?
so many.
We don't know, but we assume it's going to be plentiful because everything grows, whether it's a good seed. of good intention or if it's negative, right? So if you're around people who are planting seeds that are negative, the bounty is going to be more than just the single seed. It multiplies, right? So if you're around people who are making choices or in this negative energy of like pettiness and stuff, that petty is only going to multiply, right? The jealous, all that stuff is only going to multiply. But if you have somebody that's on like peace and joy and abundance and like collective uplift, you're going to then create this community of people because you start to be like, nah, I can't go over there. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. I feel like an other, like you feel uncomfortable in your body when you're in those places. You feel like a lame. You feel like because those probably aren't the people that you're supposed to be keeping. Your higher self is like, when you want to say like, nah, I'm not, that's because your higher self is like, these ain't the people you're supposed to be keeping.
Right.
You know what I mean? Word.
And what do you have to say to people who are telling themselves the story that this is their community and they have to stay around these people because these are the people that I grew up with, or these have been my friends, or they've been here for me for this long? What kind of advice do you have for our friends in those spaces?
I'm going to say this, and I have to be like super sterile, and I say this with compassion and love, and also as a historian that looks at data and presence, right? Is that same kind of mentality doesn't even give you the opportunity to be the kids who grew up together. Y'all ain't growing up. Y'all thinking growing up is like 21, 22. Oh, I'm a grown man. Like you're much older for sure. You deserve the respect because you get the consequence of a grown man. But I'm gonna tell you on this side of 38, great. It gets so much better. If you get, you know what I mean? Like there's so much life. And like if you really love your people, you would want them to have life, even if that means it's not with you. Right? Even if it means that we can't be together, whether it's in community, if it's in relationship, but I know that you are living because I love you so much. I want to see you live. And I have to be okay with how bad it hurts to let you go so you can live because I know what it is to be without and all this other stuff. Those are the ones you want to keep. The ones like, man, nah, you can't be around here. The ones that shoo you away from the heat, you know what I mean? It's like, nah, you got to go home. Those are the ones who care about you because they want to see you live. I don't believe in loving someone to death. What? I'm gonna love you through life, to life, in love. I'm not gonna do nothing to death. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna speak that over you, right? And so when people say, "Oh, you leaving us behind where?" We can go. That's the thing about it, is that we can go. I'm going towards life. We can go there. We can do something different. But I can't feel bad for wanting to live.
Yeah.
That is a natural mandate
Yeah.
of life. I can't feel bad for wanting to live.
And
You making me feel bad for wanting to live? Like what is that?
yeah, I've definitely felt that over these last 3 years because we
Mm,
talk about spirit moving in our lives, and especially with me
mm-hmm,
having this platform, one thing
mm-hmm,
that I've definitely had to understand is that I cannot encourage anyone if I'm not right inside. And even
mm,
from when I was younger, I just put it in my Instagram bio because I was thinking about it earlier. When I was 16, I said at the end of one of my poems, I am mouthpiece for silenced child. I am
mm,
Ayana Holmes.
mm,
And and I put it back in my bio today. I said I am mouthpiece for the silence. And just to understand that you have to be able to move something within yourself in order to
mm-hmm,
move something around within other people. That's where I'm
mm-hmm,
going with that.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
just pushing back to you speaking about you being a historian, just
mm-hmm.
to lighten the mood, or maybe not lighten the mood because we know you get serious. So, what made you
Fluctuate. Can I?
want to?
Sorry, can I put a charger in real quick? I'm sorry if I'm messing up the. Oh God! Oh, take two. Oh God! I just don't
Some
want to.
music, some music. Do
Mm,
do
mm,
do
mm,
do
mm,
do.
mm, 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 mm. Wait, never mind. I hope nobody knows what I was just doing. It's from the '90s. Extra points for who can remember. Find out what that beat was.
Comment in the comments
Comment
below if
below.
you know, if you know.
It's
But yes,
from a movie from the '90s. I will say that. Okay.
speak about you once being involved in history, getting enveloped in history, just getting
Mm-hmm.
yourself into history. Where did that start?
Mm. My mother and my father, for sure. They're Tuskegee University, well, Institute graduates. And so my parents were adamant that we knew who we were. So every summer we went to grandmama and granddaddy's house for 2 weeks. And we always went to the Tuskegee University Museum. My granddaddy was like the chief of police in Tuskegee, and like my grandmother taught at Tuskegee. And so telling stories were so important. And my mom was adamant that we walked a certain way, period. Like our history did not start with enslavement. Like we just had all kinds of books and garbs, and like we spent time in museums, black museums specifically, because my mother in particular was like, no one else is going to tell you who you are. It's going to be us, right? And so when that happened, I was like, huh, this is interesting. It's a bunch of characters, but I feel like there's something not right. I'm going to learn something different, right? And so I got down the history path also because my oldest brother is 5 years older than I am. And so he was really into like National Geographic documentaries and PBS. He would constantly watch that and like ESPN. So he was always listening to stories, and I just loved being around him. So I was listening to these documentary stories and things like that while he's hanging out and drawing. And so I started to become enamored by stories just in general. But then, because quite honestly, like I grew up with this, and I feel like a lot of people in your audience will realize this too. It's like you always kind of feel like an other and not quite understand why you feel like an other is because you see something else and see something like the song underneath the song, and it's like, do y'all see? Nobody else sees this. Do y'all understand? So I would just sit and kind of watch people in general, like in real life, like I wonder why people do stuff that they do and how this is a pattern, right? And so then with the stories of history, I was like, oh, so people are motivated to do stuff and make decisions. Why do they do that? And how do they, huh? And how did black people end up here? And why is my mama light skinned, but my daddy's black? And my grandparents, you light skinned because of what? Oh, Lord. And so then there's power and dynamics and things like that. And so I decided that, you know what? And then I got real like super blackity black. I'm black, right? Really quickly. And I was like, yeah, revolution. Yeah, I'm on the revolution. Like, yeah, Black Panther Party. And I started learning about them. I was like, I'm not that type of Panther. I was like, I ain't no gun toting Panther. Okay, let's be
Right,
clear.
right.
I am the Saturday morning pancake breakfast teach the children, and so
Packing
education
some
is going to.
lunches.
You know what I'm saying? I'm the peaceful Panther. I'm the hey kids,
Yes,
right on.
I feel that all the way. Because
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not the one with the AK-47 Panther, but I'm gonna still have the patch. I'm gonna be faithful every Saturday morning. I'm gonna be cleaning up. Look, these babies gonna know who they are, because I realized that the most powerful thing that I could probably give to my people was to be someone who was going to be a guardian and to love on our children and pour into them because we only had them for 8 hours, right? And I knew where they were going to school, and I knew that again in history I remembered I was like I couldn't imagine being some of the first black children in white schools and what that was like and how painful that was. And I was just like, if I can do anything and pour into children and love on them and be a village guardian, that was going to be my front line of the revolution. I was like, this is how we're going to shift things, because we're going to have like little soldiers and leaders who are going to change the world and do something different. They just need people who are willing to like protect them and be their champion and pour into them. And I knew that I was not going to want to do anything that was a tested area. Subject area in history is not a tested subject area. So that meant I could teach it the way I wanted to and it needed to be taught. Right? It was gonna be fun. It was gonna be the truth. I was like, okay, let's put some people on trial. Let's a Columbus, friend or foe. Let's talk about it. Right? And
story
how
for
many
you. Once
times?
you're done, I have a story
Okay.
that I remember.
But I remember, I mean, how many times did we just stop and just talk? I didn't have, and history was involved. Like that was my vehicle to have real conversations, and you can have real connections with history. So that's what motivated me in a lot of ways.
Yes, and I wanted to I think one there was one day in our class. I don't know if you know what I'm about to say. I think you do. That there was one day in our class where someone said that they did not believe that slavery happened.
Marcus.
And that I was trying not to say his name.
Oh, my fault, my fault, my fault.
But I remember that day, and but the audacity of him first to say it, and I knew, me being a child, I knew that he thought that it was funny and he thought that it was a joke. But also me being a child, but also knowing the severity of what happened to our people,
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I said happened to our people.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and then you, I wouldn't say went off, but you went off in the most caring, loving way that you could. But I understood your frustration because it's very much how dare you. So just speaking to that passion that you felt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's carried
Yeah.
me through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely carried you through. So what made you make that move to Washington, D.C.?
It was my brother, quite honestly. If you Louis Armand Player, right? Soulmate brother, brother Bear. He was a teacher at KIP, and I watched him teach at KIP for like 4 or 5 years while I was trying to matriculate. I was going through. I got multiple degrees. While I was getting certification and things like that for education, I was like, oh man, I really want to do that, right? And so I knew personally, this is part of my constitution. I don't know about other black people, but I was like, when you are black, you get out of your vicinity, you owe your community. It doesn't matter how you like it, how you love it, do or don't. You owe them time, talent, or treasure. One of those got to be given back to it. And so for me, it was my time and my talent. And I taught for a year. And then I had to get up out of Cartersville, Georgia. I had to run off, leave. And so I had applied to KIP DC and KIP Philly, and DC got me. So yeah, that's what got me in education. I was like, this is my revolution. I'm gonna do it. Whoa, whoa, not in the South. Something about no.
I could definitely feel that. And more specifically, coming to a place with such a small space that we were at APA, such a small space that we were
Yeah.
at APA. Did you see something different within Southeast Washington D.C. opposed to what you were teaching? Were you still teaching the same ages when you were in Georgia?
Yeah. So I
What was
taught
that?
middle. Yeah. So I taught ESOL in Georgia. So I taught all children who were from. I had kids from Micronesia. I had some children from Guatemala, from Mexico, uh, Micronesia, right? From like different places who all English was their second language. So I was like, no, I'm going to have. I was like, these are my babies. And so like I was like, I'm taking care of them, and they did really well and things like that. And so I've always wanted to take care of the little one. I think that was because I needed someone to take care of me. I was like, who's the babies that needed the most? I was like, I don't have the capacity, like the ability to hold the emotional weight of like supporting children who are in special education. Like I know I would take that on too much. Like I wouldn't be able to do the thresholds very well. So I was like, nope, I'm gonna go ahead and the children who don't have an advocate, that's where I'm going to go. And so when I came to DC, I was in Northwest for 3 years, and I was like, they're actually okay. I feel like I need to go somewhere else. And I was like, what is this small little charter school east of? And then I started to do research. I was like, they did what to these babies? Do you see these numbers? They did what to these children? Why? Because and so all the things from, and I knew it from undergrad. We read all types of books like Jonathan Cole's Savage Inequalities, where it's like these rundown schools and children can't read and da 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 and all this other stuff. I was like, nah. And I saw it firsthand, and I was like, there's no way that we can do this to children. And the malpractice in education, and it was like gut wrenching. But I was like, when I got to that school in Southeast, I was like, oh, this is home in a lot of ways. And then I found all my babies and all my children, and I just love them. And I was like, y'all are mine forever.
And then making the transition from education.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go right once you stopped being a teacher? Because
Yeah.
I
Oh.
it's a little bit of the transition is a blur, and then it's like reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at school. So I was at one school in Northwest. I was at the one in Southeast for 5 years, and then I was at another school in Northeast, same population for 4 years, and then I was at a nonprofit that served people in Wellington Park. So I went back to Southeast, right? So I was like, these are my babies, and did a lot of work in the nonprofit that worked with after school programs. And so by that time, I had been in this type of work with this community for almost 13 years, right? And so I realized for me, oh, we about to go. Are you ready? You remember how we about to get deep and then come back up? I realized that I was doing a righteous thing, but it wasn't the right thing for me. Right? It was a good. You know how I talk. Like I put it in, right? I was excellent effort. I took care of families and children. I gave it all on the line. And because of that, there were good outcomes because it was a good work. It was a righteous work. At what cost? Because the alignment piece wasn't there. The piece that ended up being the consequence, the fuel for that choice of righteous versus is this the right and righteous thing, is that I got burnt out. I got really short. Like I was depressed. There was a lot going on in my life, anyhow, with like my brother passing away and like that whole element, and then taking on the vicarious secondary trauma of like the stories. Every child is all their stories and everything else, and holding the space for.
From me,
What'd you say?
I said, I know you done heard something from me.
Listen, and the lunch times and my planning period and all, after school and before school and like all the different things, and the other stuff, the adult issues within school and everything else that you also have to navigate. I knew I was not doing, I needed to say that this is enough, and I needed to bless and release, like, thank you for this time, and I know this gave me what I needed, and I gave all that I could. When I started getting short and flippant with children, I was like, they didn't do anything. Why am I projecting my adult issues and frustrations on them? They really, they just need me to be consistent and loving. That's really what they're asking, and like being considerate and things like that. And so when I realized that my actions and behaviors caught up with how I was feeling, I knew I needed to make a real decision. And so it was also like a journey of manifesting too. Like each one of these transitions, I was getting more clear about what I wanted, and the vibration, what I was telling myself, and like my prayers and my treatments of like what I was thinking and my alignment. And I was like dancing with spirit. I was writing things down. I was doing some deep work, and it got better and more clear. So the righteous work and the right work started to align, right? I started to be like right now. I'm like right there. And so today I'm the philanthropic programming lead for a gender affirming apparel company, and I also am the chief people officer. And so I am so fortunate that I get to create programs that give chest binders to folks who would like to flatten their chest for whatever reason. Some folks are non-binary or trans. Some folks want to just not have larger breasts because they have negative interactions at work and they're sexualized. And it's like, how do I minimize this and make myself safe? Some folks just need to keep themselves safe because they're in the penal system and different things like that, right? And so I'm able to provide those for individuals with like lowering the impediment in doing so. And so each binder represents a human being who's being affirmed. And so to date, actually, we've donated over 12,000 binders around the world. So we're on almost every continent. So all those things that I learned throughout being a teacher was transferable, and I can now do this in a way that's life affirming and sustaining and reciprocating. I very rarely burn out. I do have to take breaks and rest, as we all should, but it's not like I'm driving like, oh Lord, if I could just get in a little wreck and just be out for 2 weeks and have a broken leg, I'd sure appreciate it. I don't want to die, but I sure do want some rest. I was at that place at one time. You know what I mean? And so when I'm there, it's like, nah, I will never let that happen again. So like I manifest my thinking, and like I just want to do good in a life affirming way that compensates me well, and I get to utilize my tools. Let's be clear. I look, Lord, I ain't trying to do it for peanut. Look, you better be clear with what you want from the Lord. How listen, be imaginative, Lord, but I need to get paid. Be imaginative, Lord. Let it come in creative ways that are life affirming and with ease. And go ahead and bring that to me. Put it in the bag, boy.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, this has been amazing. This is my last question for you.
Okay.
Where can we see you growing from here?
Yes, absolutely. So I am also a spiritual coach. So if you wanted to go to Cosmic Hype Life, sorry. You can book some time with me and we could do some spiritual coaching in which we actually, if you're in the DMV and, things are kosher and very lit and, daytime, adventures, we can go on a walk and just talk about things and we can discover the I am that I am together. I'm going to be putting up some videos soon and I'll have some goodies in 23 that I've been working on. And so I'll be believing that I'm giving birth to a number of things very soon, but I go at the pace that feels right with me in spirit. So don't worry, I'll be around.
And I'll link
Mhm.
everything below. But once again, I want to say
Word.
thank you so much for your time. And I know that many people will be blessed from this conversation. It was an amazing conversation. I wish we can go on and on, but I know we will talk for hours and hours. And
Hours.
we're going to talk as soon as this thing wraps up.
Word.
But I'm just so grateful. And again, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and keep growing, friends. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and
Word.
show love to our friend Carmen on their page, and
Yes.
let's keep on moving.
Oh, I don't
All
think I
right.
said my
Oh,
actual page. Let me say it real quick. It's at Rev Carmen D Player. Yeah, that's it.
Carmen Player. All right.
Right
Thank
on.
you all.
Take care.